I left for what was supposed to be a peaceful 2-week vacation, fully expecting that nothing dramatic would happen back home while I was gone. You know how it is. Maybe the plants would need watering. Maybe the neighbor's landscapers would accidentally blow leaves into my yard again. Just the usual harmless suburban annoyances. What I absolutely did not expect, what nobody ever expects, is to return home and discover that your driveway has been erased from existence. Not damaged, not cracked, completely erased, like someone deleted it from the map. I still remember the exact moment I turned onto my street. Everything looked normal at first. The same quiet hillside neighborhood, the same maple trees lining the road, the same modest houses that had been there since the 1950s. But then something caught my attention. My neighbor's house looked bigger. Not just renovated bigger. I mean king of the hill bigger. Now my neighbor, well, former neighbor now, let's call him Victor Langston. Victor was one of those hedge fund types who moved into the neighborhood about 4 years earlier. The kind of guy who doesn't simply renovate a house. He turns it into a personal monument. His property used to be a normal colonial-style home, like the rest of ours. But after Victor bought it, the construction trucks started arriving, and they never really stopped. Every few months, there was some new project underway. First, he added a detached guest house, then a climate-controlled wine cellar, then a glass-wall home theater that looked like it belonged in some Beverly Hills mansion. For 3 straight years, that property was basically a construction site wrapped in luxury upgrades. And Victor loved every minute of it. He'd stand in his driveway with contractors and architects, gesturing at blueprints like a general inspecting his troops. But the day I came back from vacation, I noticed something else had changed. The entrance to his property looked completely different. Where there used to be a simple narrow driveway, there was now an enormous brick courtyard, red stone, perfectly patterned, the kind of thing you expect to see outside a European estate. And parked neatly inside that courtyard were 3 luxury cars lined up like they were posing for a dealership commercial. A Bentley, a black Range Rover, and something low, Italian, and bright red that probably cost more than my entire house. At first, my reaction was simple admiration. Wow, I thought. Victor really went all out this time. But as I drove closer, my stomach suddenly dropped, because the courtyard didn't just sit in front of Victor's house. It stretched across mine. My gravel driveway, the one that had run along the edge of my property for decades, was gone, completely buried beneath brick. The entire path that used to lead to my garage had been paved over like it never existed. I actually stopped my car in the middle of the street and just stared. You know that strange moment when your brain refuses to process what your eyes are seeing, like your mind is buffering? That was exactly how it felt. Eventually, I parked along the curb, stepped out slowly, and walked toward the house. The bricks were brand new, perfectly clean, still dusty from construction. And right there, standing in the center of what used to be my driveway, was Victor. He had his hands clasped behind his back and was leaning slightly forward, admiring the courtyard like a museum curator studying a painting. Next to him stood a man in a blazer holding rolled-up blueprints, probably the architect. I walked straight toward them. "Victor," I said, try and keep my voice steady, "why is my driveway under your patio?" He barely looked at me. I'm not exaggerating. He just gave me a quick sideways glance, like I had interrupted his lunch order. "Oh, that," he said casually, "that old gravel strip?" "Old gravel strip?" I felt my eye twitch. "Yes," I replied slowly. "The gravel strip that leads to my garage." Victor shrugged. "Well, according to the survey we commissioned, it was never a legally established driveway," he said. "Just an informal path. Technically, it falls within a shared easement zone." He said that last part with a smug little smile, like he had just explained something painfully obvious to a child. I blinked. "Shared what?" "The easement," he repeated, casually pointing toward the ground. "My attorneys reviewed it. Completely legal to modify. Frankly, I think the neighborhood benefits from the upgrade." Upgrade? My driveway was gone, and he was calling an upgrade. "Victor," I said, trying very hard to keep my temper under control, "my car is currently parked on the street because the only way to reach my garage used to be right here." He waved his hand dismissively, like he was brushing away a fly. "Well, you can still drive across the courtyard," he said. "Think of it as a shared entrance. Much more elegant than that gravel path." Elegant. That word almost made me laugh. Because if you've ever dealt with wealthy people who think money automatically give them authority, you know the tone. That slightly bored confidence. That unspoken assumption that rules bend around them. But the strangest part was that Victor genuinely seemed to believe he was doing me a favor. And if I'm being honest, I felt a little cornered at that moment, because over the past few months there had already been warning signs. His landscapers had once planted shrubs nearly 3 feet into my yard. His contractors frequently used my driveway to unload materials without asking. Every time I mentioned it politely, Victor gave the same answer. "Oh, don't worry. We'll sort that out." But now the entire driveway was gone. And according to him, legally gone. So that afternoon, I called the county planning office. The woman on the phone sounded tired before I even finished explaining. "Sir," she said, "Mr. Langston's legal team has already submitted several documents regarding that easement. Our department is reviewing them." "How long will that take?" I asked. She hesitated. "A few weeks," she said. "Possibly longer." Weeks. Meanwhile, my garage was blocked, and my driveway had been turned into a luxury courtyard for someone else's sports cars. Technically, the only way to reach my own property now was by driving across Victor's fancy brick entrance. That night, I sat in my living room, staring out the window at the glowing courtyard lights Victor had installed. It looked like the entrance to a luxury hotel, and right in the middle of it sat the ghost of my driveway. That's when I remembered something important. Something Victor's lawyers, and apparently the city, had completely overlooked. Because my little cottage wasn't just another house in the neighborhood. It used to belong to my grandfather. And my grandfather wasn't just a homeowner. He was one of the original developers who helped build this hillside community back in the 1950s, which meant somewhere in my basement, buried inside boxes that hadn't been opened in decades, there were old maps, old permits, old agreements, the kind of documents that tell the real story of a neighborhood. So that night I went downstairs, pulled open a dusty metal filing cabinet, and started digging. About 40 minutes later, I found the first piece of paper that made me smile. Not a big smile, just the quiet kind of smile you get when you realize someone has made a very expensive mistake.